Oh, hello. Here we are.
Yeah, I can't see you. Oh, there I can.
Yeah, so I don't know what's happening there. We had a bit of technical naffness, but here we are once again on a Friday afternoon, coffee in hand.
Go ahead,
Whereas this
managed to
time
get
around, I've
there.
got the added sound of children in the background,
Oh,
causing a bit
okay.
of.
Have we got a thing for this week, or
No, I had a little sort of canvas around, but I thought we would just because there's a few things that have been going on, so we can sort of talk about some of the things that have been happening. So, from my perspective, obviously, the biggest news is that we've released our podcast, which
yeah,
has thankfully been very well to hear,
okay,
people getting things from it. As with all creative endeavors, as soon as you do one thing, you kind of think about the ways in which you're going to improve it, which is how things should be. So, we're always looking at ways in making things better. We've got an exciting thing about being now in the Google Play Store, so we can probably talk a bit more about that
yeah,
once once that gets firmed up. So the community now has access to the podcast, and the wider public will have access to it next week. So that's a little bonus, and we're growing our membership base, our community base. We're getting people who are not only coming to gain the benefits, but also bringing some friends along, which is lovely. So we need
yeah.
to figure out how to adequately recognise that, which we're in the process of doing, which is great to hear. Anyway, what's been happening in your world?
Well, I don't know about everybody else, but I always end up feeling a bit um, sort of blown off course by bank holidays as they sort of kind of come in and creep into the diary, and then it then breaks everything up in the middle of it. So,
It's a
um,
good thing about
it,
being a nurse. You don't worry about that.
um, so yeah, so it's a busy day. I think. Well, I mean, we had bank holiday all aside. It was Tuesday was actually ended up being quite a busy day. We did have a bit of a break in the morning, and sort of because we weren't delivering the Essex Business Accelerator. That starts up again next week. I'm looking forward to that. So the next cohort for that, just for everybody's guide, if they are interested, that'll start on July the 4th, and you can register via Colby, and that's sort of again an extension of what we're doing with this particular cohort. So please come along, please join us on that one if you want. And in terms of gaining some more additional insight, so we've got the next week is the penultimate week where we'll be looking at pitching and a bit more about pitch decks and the reasons why they're really important, and not just simply for gaining investment. They're also an incredibly useful tool to articulate your business in a very agile kind of ways. And I think that's one thing, again, which is really sort of crucial. And we're a big advocate for any bit of planning. We like to plan. We like to have plans around us, but we also recognize that every good idea that you get, every good idea that you have in terms of your business, there's no point just sitting there and trying to write a huge thesis on it. You've got to convey it in a particular way. And I think this is where pitch decks really do come into their own. They encapsulate a particular value that you're providing. They facilitate the articulation of it. They allow you to get that out into the public domain. Really, really useful. And I think that's what, again, where we kind of emphasize and we focus upon within those particular accelerator programs. It's a piece of collateral that people can develop and have used, whether it's in sales or whether it's for exploring the opportunities around investment or whatever it is that in that particular world, but they're really useful. We had a very busy day on Wednesday because we were back at the university and we were delivering some one-to-one stuff there. Got it's amazing ideas popping up. I can't go into too much detail, but there was a really, really interesting one where a PhD student was looking at the properties of seaweed, and that's part of their thesis within what they're looking at within that area. And they're talking and developing an entire business around that particular that particular piece of research. And I think, again, it's really highly practical stuff, but there is a lot of really good stuff that was going to come from that in terms of both in terms of the perspective of being able to develop a value chain right from production all the way through to output, which is hugely valuable in that regard. Secondly, it's backed up by their own analysis, their own research, and the evidence that they're building for that. And they've got big aspirations for this particular product. And the other really interesting and really great kind of conversations that we had on the back of that is that we've got another student business, and there's similarities between the two. They're both working in different areas, but there is definitely a synergy between what they're doing. And it was great just putting the two businesses together and just saying, why don't you guys just talk to each other? Because there is a lot of synergy between what you're doing. There's a lot of opportunity potentially for you to get involved. And I think that's where, all of this kind of stuff really gets really exciting, because there's so much going on in that particular world. Outside of that, Thursday was a kind of a day where I've been working to develop a piece of content. It's taking a while to do, but it involves the kind of active note taking around a particular book. But it's really interesting stuff because it gets you to go over and revisit the themes of the book. It gets you to understand what those themes are. And it's also just a really interesting sort of kind of process, because you end up with if you're looking out, I think as a part of the Mighty Networks, we carved out a section for content, and one of the bits of content that we deliver is a thing called musings, which is my sort of kind of take of actually kind of reading and actively note taking as we're reading or revisiting and looking at the various themes and trying to articulate our perspective around a piece of work. And some of the work that we're looking at is things that have changed kind of our thinking, the way that we view stuff, or just stuff that really is well written and well presented. So we're really sort of looking at a particular part of that within that. And that brings me on to my final bit of thinking, which for this week has been this, which is I want to start a book club, right? I want to start a book club within the week. We've talked about this for so many months. I found a book that I think would be an incredible book. Right? Months, years, right? I thought, I want to do this. Now we got the format, now we got the place to do this. I just think, it cries out for conversations. Reading is the greatest mentoring that you can get. Well, it's actually not the greatest, but it's actually a really impactful way of growing our minds and growing our thinking and absorbing information from other areas. So I've got a really good book that I want to bring to the community. I'm going to try and figure a way out of making the book accessible to the community. I'm going to cap the number of people within the reading group to 10, so that we've got that. So ultimately, we'll commit to providing the book, we'll commit to providing the sessions, and we'll go there and we'll do it on a monthly basis. So I just want to kind of figure out how we're going to fund it, how much we're going to be doing within this particular area. But I really want to kind of start this particular process, because I think it just adds to those particular conversations and everybody as well, right? So there's two elements to this. One of which is let's start a reading and writing environment. Let's start to pick a book. Let's start to read. Let's also look at the possibility that we've all got words within us. We've all got, there's a great analogy where everybody's got a novel in them. Well, okay, I don't know whether that's true or not, to be perfectly honest, but I believe everybody has got a book in them, right? And I think everybody.
The second half of that saying, which people don't often say, is that for the majority of the people, it should stay there.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. And actually, what we can do is help each other to get that information out. I had an attempt at writing 2 ebooks, which I thoroughly enjoyed. It really involved research. They really involved getting me thinking and looking around and doing stuff. And I've got a third one, which is kind of 2/3 of the way there, but it keeps changing and I'm not quite happy with it. So I do want to keep working at it and all the rest of it around entrepreneurial leadership, because I think that's a really crucial aspect of what we're about. So I want to bring the book club to life. So I'm going to pick up. I've got a book. I've reached out to the guy that wrote it, and he's. I wouldn't say go as far as to say he's an acquaintance, but he's ultimately somebody I've known. And I reached out to him and said, would love to use your book as a core sort of area. And he just said, great, lovely, thanks very much indeed. And and we'll see where that conversation can lead us as well. So
it's quite exciting. It's quite a scoop. You heard it here first.
Yeah. So if we can get this going, I'm going to try and bring it to the community and see what everybody thinks about it and launch it hopefully within the next couple of months, and then we'll see, or next 6 weeks, let's call it that. So by the time we get through to that part of the sort of kind of middle of July, something along those lines, we've got this launched, got the platform for it, and we've got figured out how to do it. The other thing that I want to kind of put out there is our membership has grown. Great, it's grown a lot, but what we really want to do is actually kind of bring that to life a little bit more. So we'll look at bringing around an event, which will be something to do with a speed networking event, some aspect of it. Maybe we can fund it with a cup of coffee, maybe we can get a voucher or something like that, but actually just do an online event. We've got a great platform that we use from time to time. We don't use enough of it, but we need to get to use it, which is AirMeet. I think it'll be a great networking environment for us to set up that particular event. And if that proves successful, then hey, look, we can actually start to deliver these on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis or whatever it kind of works around that. But another chance and opportunity for the community to come together and sort of learn from each other in that regard.
Yeah, because I've just had a check and we're up to, as of today, because we had a new member join, we're up to 70 members now. So, which I think, I think given the where we were and the sort of the giddy excitement that we had when people were joining that took a long time to get to where it is now. So I think it's not only a testament to the platform, but it's a testament to the time is right for people to find a place where they feel a sense of belonging and support.
Yeah.
And the great thing that I've seen recently is that now we've got to the point where we're getting the amount of people in who are starting to feel comfortable coming out of their shell and engaging conversations, not because they've been prompted to by us, but because it feels like a natural thing to do. So we've got one member who's put up an event, which another member is going to, and is now they're having conversations together. That's kind of for people who are behind the scenes a little bit more. That's the dream, isn't it?
Absolutely.
To feel that people are comfortable enough in the space that you are nurturing that they can, be a part of and start those conversations.
And I think that there's the other side of this is to recognise that this community is not the Weaves community. It's the Weave facilitating this, but it's actually it's the North Essex entrepreneurs and business people's community, and we're just going to manage it. We're going to facilitate it. We're going to be a part of it. We're going to bring things to it. But we want people to keep thinking about it from that perspective. It's their community. It's what they want from it, and as much as that goes, we will do and facilitate as much of that as we possibly can. And keep this particularly going, because I think from our perspective, it's how people become more trusted, more connected, better positions. They're doing all of the good stuff. And I think that's something, again, which is really important from our point of view, that we recognize that we don't, it's not, this community is not ours. It is the community's community, and they just need to kind of, use it and get themselves involved and understand the power of this particular area. And if we can support each other in any particular way, whether you've got an event, whether you've got a piece of content that you want to trial, maybe you've got a new idea.
Like Lisa with her Sales Geek.
Absolutely. You've got a new idea that you want to bring together and put it out there, then this is a great space to say, hopefully it'll become, as the confidence grows and people see it working and doing what it's doing, it will become an ever increasing safe environment for people to test out ideas, to test out thinking, to test out maybe, maybe this is something that we're looking to do within our business. And what does everybody think if we were offering this, or if our value proposition did this, or if we started to develop these particular ideas? So we've got I mean, I could think the great thing about where we are in all of this is that we got masses of ideas, right? We started the podcast, right? And the podcast is, I think, an enormous kind of signpost, or enormous kind of microscope in which we can put under the North Essex business community, and people can get to know us. They can understand what we're about, what Essex is really about at the end of the day, not just us, but ultimately they'll find people within that particular space. We want to bring in the world of print. We want to kind of think about magazine production. We want to think about stuff that we were doing and looking at before the pandemic, stuff around that, again, to showcase the talent, the innovation, and the areas within this. But we also, and it's fundamental to what we are, find mechanisms of bringing together the students and businesses within the region. And that's why we're looking at this particular model around interns, and from the point of view of making it easier for businesses to engage with students. And if people don't understand the value of what that talent pool is going to be doing, you've got to have a strategy around talent. You've got to have a dynamic strategy around the way that you can bring talent into your business, because at that point, that's the way that we grow businesses. We find ways to partnership, collaborate, and work together, but we find ways of bringing talent and new ideas into what we're doing. And that kind of process is really crucial, again, for us. So in my mind, in my picture of where we want to be, we're creating a jobs board. We're creating a jobs board for businesses to say, I'm looking for talent, support, areas of development within this particular field, and I am willing to invest some time, effort, and energy into helping a student to be a part of my business for a short period of time. And it's a safe part of journey towards employment. It's a way for people to understand what it's like and what you need to be doing within that employment sphere. So from that perspective, again, that's another aspect of what we're trying to deliver within this. I don't think we don't think we're ever going to run out of ideas. Book clubs,
No.
intern platforms, magazines, podcasts. I think, the ideas can be really, really important to what we're doing. The most crucial thing for us is to recognize that we are serving a community, and that particular point, our goal and aspiration is to keep that spotlight firmly on us, and make sure that people are aware of what's happening within our region and the good stuff that's happening within our region.
Which is often overlooked, especially in communities that are maybe geographically or politically overshadowed by other places. The development and the prosperity and the benefits and the positivity that comes out from some regions just gets sort of smothered by other stories and other attention, and it can give people sort of hope and confidence to pursue their aspirations in this region, because they can sort of see that it's possible.
Yeah, and I think it's creating that kind of virtuous cycle where ultimately, people have confidence. They start to create aspiration. That aspiration starts to find the resources it needs to grow. Whether that's the networks that it connects with, whether it's the learning that it can sort of kind of tap into, whether it's development of the teams through kind of creation of innovation events or within that particular field. But ultimately, it gives people that confidence to believe that they can actually do this. And what then happens is that if people start witnessing other businesses tapping into this and growing into this particular space, now all of a sudden, if you are a business from, say, Shoreditch or Cambridge or wherever, where it's a highly sort of kind of or a different environment, you might look at this and go, actually, Essex, North Essex is a tremendous place to kind of set up a business. Look at what's going on, both at the, within the community, the business community. Look at the businesses that are standing up and making a difference. Look at all of the university space, the work that's going on within that. There's a vibrant startup ecosystem that's floating around that we can tap into. Culturally, it's a really interesting place and getting more and more interesting. How can that go, that kind of element of work and leadership really sort of kind of be, we can tap into that. And there is a ready talent pool that's here to support any business as it seeks to grow. And if we can bring in that inward investment, that in itself will ultimately raise the level of activity from the businesses around us. And at that point, we have this opportunity of creating this kind of virtuous circle and raising the overall level of aspiration for us all. So I think that's the vision at the end of the day, is creation of quality jobs. It's creation of opportunity. It's a creation of places where people will invest into our region and understand that the value of doing that, right, is collectively, the raising of that aspiration across the entire region, not just around one person's success. This is built collectively around all people's successes. And again, when you've got that, now all of a sudden you start bringing in investment. You start bringing in that environment of where we are. We're going on this journey as well of going down towards a B Corp. Right, that's something again that we want to do. The beneficial corporation. I've got a meeting this afternoon with a legal team. So ultimately, once we've done this particular call, I have a break, and then we've got a meeting with them. But that's again exploring the opportunities of becoming a beneficial corporation with a commitment that surpluses within our business. After tax, when we've got reserve profits, when we're in that position, when we've got that space and be able to do that, we're committing to actually then turn that around. And I've even got this kind of mindset of where I've got this idea of creating what I call the 1% club. And the 1% club is that we have a fund, a pool of money that as a business, we just invest back into our micro businesses, into businesses. They come to us, they pitch, they go through a process, they become involved in that thing. There is a bit of money that they can then pitch for at that particular point. It's a micro, if you like, a micro grant, but we take 1% equity in that business, right? And that's not us looking to make thousands and thousands of pounds. That's us looking to educate people about what it takes to become investment ready, and actually giving people that sense of what it's like to have another person involved in your business. And then ultimately from that perspective, we've got a diversified portfolio of micro investments, right, that ultimately allow us to interact with our community. And therefore, from that perspective, they themselves start to treat us, right, as that business supporting environment. And we can replicate this, we can do more and more of it. And then we create what we call entrepreneurial density. And that entrepreneurial density means at the end of the day that there is a collective weight of body of people and businesses that are starting out at starting up, right? There's a difference between starting out and starting up and growing their aspiration accordingly. We can exit whenever anybody wants to get us out, but ultimately from that perspective, we've made an investment. We've given people that opportunity to feel like it is. Now, all we're doing here is in a way replicating what we do at the universities, right? So at the universities do a phenomenal job of creating a whole platform for business support and entrepreneurship to flourish amongst their student bodies. And then they provide access to micro grants that allow these students to start to test out and develop their ideas more completely. And that's really at the end of the day where we want to be. But we just want to do it from a position of saying, you know what, you're a limited company, you're whatever it is, but we've got 1% of your business. So ultimately, now what you've got is the opportunity to understand what it's like to have an investor on board. You can buy us out at any point, at a certain particular level, but ultimately we have the ability to stay connected to you and help you grow and develop your offer, because we've got skin in the game to be able to do that. So again, that's another kind of idea
that's another idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like the problem isn't lack of ideas. It's like with all things, just lack of time and
What was it? Somebody said I'd rather be a flawed diamond than a pebble, right? So, so basically, from that perspective, I think that we are, at the end of the day, that kind of rough cut diamond that's there. And I think there is an opportunity for us to be able to do that. I also think that there's a world of pebbles when you actually cast them into an area that builds. But ultimately, from that analogy, being a flawed diamond as opposed to a pebble, we know at the end of the day, we're not the finished product. And I don't think any business, right, is in that particular glorious stage where they are the finished product. Every business, whether it's Apple, Amazon, whoever it is, are always looking for the next piece of reinvention, the next piece of development. And I think reinvention, I joined it, actually, that's one thing I've been diverging because that's my mind, as it often goes off at tangents. I joined a piece of software called Telegraph. You ever come across Telegraph?
I've heard, yeah, what is that? Yeah, is that a news
it's
thing?
like a WhatsApp alternative to a WhatsApp
Yeah.
group, right? But there was a group on it, and it came to me via the book I was reading, and they had a link to it because they, the person that the author was talking to was this lady that's this woman who runs this organization, which ultimately is about reinventing ourselves, and the fact that sometimes people think that the reinvention process is only there at strategically sort of kind of almost existential kind of events that make us have to reimagine our lives and do
sort of a momentous epiphany.
Yeah, like getting made redundant or losing a business or having to close it down and do whatever it is. It's a forced kind of situation. But her philosophy is no, actually reinvention is a cyclical thing that we need to do more and more of, right, in our lives. We have to become really comfortable within that environment. And it goes into the agile mindset. It goes into wherever we are because, right, and I think that the kind of the philosophy of it is that like a chameleon, right, we have to change colors to reflect what's happening in our lives more and more, right, so that we become that adaptable organization, that adaptable sense of who we are. So you could find that in a few years' time that, Apple looks very, very different from its current model to where it is to something which it is going to be in the future. There is this whole kind of process of reinvention that keeps going through all of these relevant industries. And the problem with it is there's inertia, right, that stops us doing it because we either are in love with what we do, right, which is a big, big challenge for a lot of people. We just simply love it, so therefore we don't want to change it. And then ultimately it creeps up on us when we don't actually know that we stopped enjoying ourselves. So this community, yeah.
You've got to sort of fear that.
Yeah, this community.
I've created something this precious to me, and if I change it, I might get more sort of people or more customers or more members, but I might alienate my hardcore devotees by sort of changing, or changing the formula of my Pepsi.
Yeah. But there is this element of, right, this idea of becoming aware and becoming hugely adaptable to the environment that we're in. And I think this is something which, I don't rail against it. I question it. When we call ourselves something, we label ourselves, whether it's a small business or whatever it is in that regard, that we're almost, by labeling ourselves that particular name, we're creating a static field around who we are. And that prevents us from going through this reinvention process. And the reinvention process, because we like the comfort zone. We are a small business, or we are this, or we are that, right? Rather than actually think about it from a different perspective. Because there's one thing. We
are an aspirational business.
Yeah, or we are an embryonic business or a dynamic business. We have moving body parts. We have lots of different areas. And I've got no idea at the end of the day what, the weave is going to look like in 5 years' time. Right, for where it is now. I know, and I believe that we both do, as co-founders of the Weave, believe that we're going to make an impact over and above the sum of all its parts, because we see the value of what we're doing for those embryonic aspirational businesses. And at the end of the day, we value this idea of what is a quality job? What is a job at the end of the day that provides opportunity? And we do that because we're either parents or grandparents, and we're looking at our children or our grandchildren, and we're looking at them and saying, what's their life in the next 15, 20 years, right? Where are they going to be? And ultimately, what opportunities are they going to face? Because I bet you it's not going to be the same as what we're facing today. Either the world has gone in a very different space, and the world temperatures have risen above whatever it is, and we're in a really difficult place, or what we're fighting for today, that kind of environmental sustainable outcome becomes the norm of business. But we've got to change in a way. We've got to become radically different to be able to do that, and that's where this reinvention process, I think, is really exciting. Scary. Don't get me wrong. I think it's massively scary because change is always scary. But I think it's absolutely valuable that we all have to start to think about it in those sorts of terms.
It's like a rebirth. You
I think so.
You can sort of take the fear and kind of change it into an injection of clarity and energy. You've got with a rebirth, the images I'm seeing is of freedom to become something that you want to be, and the freedom to be energized and unencumbered by your previous incarnation.
Yeah.
Which is a bit heavy for 3:30.
Bit heavy, but hey, you know what? If you can't,
no subject is out of bounds for the huddles.
If you can't talk about it at 3:30 on a Friday afternoon after a bank holiday week or whatever, when you probably feel like you're out of kilter anyway. So, but I do genuinely think that the future is really interesting, challenging, but interesting.
Interesting.
And I think from that perspective, it pays for us to potentially have those sorts of conversations and think about it in that light. A lot of those ideas, I have to add, are in the book that I'm sort of working my way through at the moment, and a lot of the thinking
it's not this book club book, is it?
No, the book club book. I'll tell you what the book club book is. I've got it. I'm just
get ready for the reveal, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, get ready for the reveal. Let me just So it's actually the book
limited
club.
Spaces.
Yeah, I mean, we only want this as a small group because I think that it can grow and we can create subgroups and do all of that. But I think in order for it to become valuable, it just needs to be limited to kind of us and or not us, but within that. So the book is called Fall in Love with the Problem, right, and Not the Solution. And it's written by a guy called is it Uri? So it's written by Uri Levine, and Uri Levine is the guy, the founder of Waze. And anybody who knows Waze was
navigation
app, right? And he turned that into $1 billion business. And I came across him when I did a thing called the Power MBA, and he was one of their kind of mentors and spoke about the stuff and all the rest of it. I really didn't know anything much about Waze up until that point, and it was a really, really interesting piece of delivery. I loved that program, and would highly recommend it. But I think there's so much out there, from that perspective. You've got to have it in the right mind. But ultimately, Uri Levine is this guy, and he's came across as being quite a genuinely affable bloke. But he's written this book, Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution. And as a person who is kind of always thinking about problems and the way that we address them and doing all of that, and that's probably my head in terms of kind of my systems thinking head as much as anything else, I just love this particular kind of analogy. I haven't read the book yet, so I'm looking forward to kind of reading it. You can get it on Audible, and I've got it on Audible, but I'm playing my way through another Audible book at the moment. But I get more enjoyment a lot of the time reading the pages and sort of kind of flicking the book. So I've got to kind of figure out how to do this and bring this to the club and start to do that. And so I emailed or LinkedIn the guy the other day and just said that. So he came back and said, "Oh, I'm really pleased that you're doing the book," and we'll see where that goes, if anyway. So we'll just see. but got always
watch this space.
Watch this space. But I think it's a really good book to start with, because it's certainly something I think that's relevant to the development of businesses in that regard. And I think it's quite an interesting approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, we look forward to the changes and the developments that are happening in the community, and glad that you are all with us to join that. So obviously this recording will be available afterwards if you want to review it and find our thoughts. But other than that, we'll see you on the inside.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much indeed. Take care, everybody.
All right. Bye for now. Have a good weekend, everyone.
And you. Take care.
Bye.